Hey there, Philip the Librarian here. We're going to try something a little different. I don't normally do movie reviews because YouTube already has plenty of those, but this movie has been nagging me for a long time. For as long as I can remember, my parents have always told me that Ishtar is the worst movie ever made. My mom and dad don't agree on much, but they agree on this. Is it really that bad? Let us see. We begin with the two main characters, Chuck Clark, played by Dustin Hoffman, and Lyle Rogers, played by Warren Beatty, writing a song, Badly.
Telling the truth can be dangerous business.
We see them writing songs, and we can tell that the songs do not sound good, and then we see them delude themselves into thinking that their songs are good, that their songs sound just as good as something by Bruce Springsteen or Simon and Garfunkel. So, haha, they think they're good, and they're actually not good. This is funny, right? The thing is, people have been singing badly for thousands of years. There is no novelty in watching two men sing badly. The song they sing, Dangerous Business, is basically a parable about the dangers of telling the truth. And it is bad, but it is not bad in an interesting or wacky way. It makes a show of being really straightforward, and that is the problem with it. It bores the people in the nightclub, and it bores the viewers of the movie. Their second gig, in which they perform Little Darlin', is mildly amusing because they are so out of their element. The style of this song sets up more of an expectation of what the song is supposed to sound like, and their miserable attempt at performing this song clashes with this expectation. This is actually kind of funny for the first 10 seconds. Sadly, this scene goes on for 1 minute and 18 seconds. It serves no purpose except to reinforce that their singing and dancing are even worse than their songwriting. Chuck's first line in the next scene is,
I don't understand what we did wrong.
Which shows us they are not learning anything from these experiences. Chuck goes off to think, and he thinks about the last 5 months that they have known each other. We get a flashback as to how Chuck and Lyle met. Driving his ice cream truck, Lyle comes up with a new song about ice cream.
Yes.
Cherry ripple kisses,
Lip smacking back.
And he is torturing his wife Willa with it. Then we see Chuck performing in a restaurant, and he begins to sing one of his own songs for an old couple celebrating their wedding anniversary. This is very sweet and could set up his character as a person with a big heart, except the song includes a lot of metaphorical references to the possibility that the husband and wife are probably going to die soon.
You'll be well taken care of after I've gone off to the land of the big sleep. I'm leaving some love in my will. Yes, I'm leaving some love in my will. My life is nearly over and time goes by so fast.
Now this brings to mind a certain Tom Lehrer song.
and we will all go together when we go. Oh, what a comforting fact that is to know.
But Chuck's song is somber and slow, and so it actually sounds funereal, which is very morbid and distasteful given the circumstances. It's not funny, it's just wrong. Chuck and Lyle meet in the restaurant, and we get a montage of them writing songs together. Badly.
I met her.
Bam!
There is no sense of progression or self-discovery, or they seem to pride themselves on originality, yet their songs have absolutely nothing to say. These are two grown men who apparently have devoted their lives to music, and yet they appear to know very little about how to write or perform it. You'd think that after a while one of them would decide that they would be better off doing something else, but they never find anything else to do. In many ways this resembles the 2003 movie Gigli, in which Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez play two criminals working for the mob, except that they are clearly in the wrong profession. As Roger Ebert put it, there is no way these two are killers for the mob. They don't have the disposition for it. It's the same problem here. Chuck and Lyle have no apparent talent for what they are doing, and the movie never gives them any other talent for them to discover later on. They keep doing the same thing badly again and again. Willa leaves Lyle off screen, and Lyle goes on about how he was married to Willa for a long time. Chuck tries to teach Lyle how to pronounce the word schmuck.
Schmuck. It's not smuck. It's schmuck.
Smuck.
Why is this in the movie? They go out womanizing. Chuck's girlfriend Carol leaves Chuck, and this is just after we saw Chuck saying that he wants to kiss every inch of this other woman he just met at a bar.
Crazy? I want to kiss every inch of you. Get in a clinch with you.
So we have no sympathy for him. Chuck has a breakdown and he considers suicide by jumping off his window ledge. Lyle intervenes and gets him to come back inside. This could have been a tender moment, except I feel nothing for these people. 20 minutes into the movie, and I feel nothing for the two main characters. This first act is a train wreck. Chuck and Lyle are the embodiment of mediocrity. They are not intelligent, they are not ahead of their time, they are not even decent people. We never see them do anything really nice or productive or helpful. They are just dull. And we can guess that the rest of the movie is going to focus on them. After reflecting on their mutual failure, Chuck decides that they will take a gig in Morocco. And we get our first glimpse of Ishtar, a fictitious country near the Moroccan border, and it is on the brink of revolution. A young archaeologist named Omar discovers an ancient map of Ishtar which contains a prophecy about two messengers who will come to Ishtar and restore balance. Professor Barnes tells Omar to take the map and run, and Omar escapes just before they are ambushed. He takes the map to a room somewhere and hides it, then calls his sister Shira Asel and says he will meet her, except Omar gets stabbed by a guy who is looking for the map. Chuck and Lyle arrive in Ishtar. Lyle goes off to the bathroom or something, and Shira Asel approaches Chuck and states that she desperately needs to get to Marrakesh, a city in Morocco. She kind of seduces him into giving her his passport and trading jackets with her, even though they have never met before. Since he no longer has a passport, Chuck cannot travel to Morocco, and Lyle must go on to Marrakesh alone. Chuck checks into a hotel in Ishtar and meets Jim Harrison, who works for the CIA and who says that the communists are trying to start a coup d'etat in Ishtar. Chuck offers his services as a spy for Jim, saying he will report any left-wing activity he witnesses in exchange for payment. Charles Grodin is at least believable as an American agent, and this scene flows relatively well. We finally get some content, and we see Chuck actually develop a plan, albeit a plan to obtain some petty cash, and this is right after we saw him give his passport and his jacket away to a complete stranger. The next night in Morocco, we are treated to, oh goody, more singing. Lyle performs alone at the Chez Casablanca Lounge. He is very nervous and sings worse than usual, until Chuck suddenly appears and they break into That's Amore, enthusiastically but out of tune. I mean, what did you expect?
Moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. That's amore.
Look, there are plenty of good movies about music, but they featured actual musicians. Ishtar is a movie about music, and the two primary musicians are atrocious. They never get any better. If by some miracle they began performing wonderfully once they started playing in this lounge in Morocco, it wouldn't have made any sense, but it might have been surprising and uplifting. Instead, we see them perform badly again, and the audience likes it, either because the people simply have no idea what constitutes good music, or because movie. Anyway, it turns out that Jim got Chuck into Morocco by some means. Chuck goes for a ride, but Lyle turns in early, and Shira sneaks into Lyle's room and tries to steal his suitcase, mistaking it for Chuck's suitcase. And like Chuck did before, Lyle mistakes Shira for a boy. This is a running joke, and it goes on for way too long. For minutes on end, Lyle keeps thinking that Shira is a boy. Again, we don't have any context for this scene. We don't know anything about Shira up until now. And the movie is not trying to make any kind of statement about gender roles. This conversation serves no purpose except to make Lyle look naive, and I think the movie has already established that. Shira warns Lyle that Chuck is working for the CIA and that the CIA bring nothing but trouble. Well, I can't really argue with that, I guess. She asks for Lyle's help in overthrowing a tyrant. As she begs him, she says, "You were kind." Even though he tackled her, hit her, patronized her, and kind of groped her. How is he kind? She explains that she put something in Chuck's luggage while they were exchanging jackets at the airport because this was her only way of smuggling this item out of Ishtar and into Morocco. It's pretty convenient how their plane had to land in Ishtar. Chuck and Lyle were going to Morocco, not Ishtar. We don't get a good explanation for why their plane couldn't land directly in Morocco. It's nothing but a plot device. Then Shira tells Lyle that if he wishes to contact her, he must go to the camel market and say that he wishes to buy a blind camel from Mohammed. Considering Lyle's singing, a deaf camel might be more suitable. Chuck meets Jim in a restaurant. Jim reveals that he had planted a microphone on Chuck, that he knows that Shira used Chuck's passport to get into Marrakesh, and that she is a left-wing agent and Omar was her brother. He says that the map Omar found could destabilize the entire Middle East. Jim thinks that Shira has the map, and he insists that the CIA must find this map before anyone else does. Jim suspects that Lyle is now a left-wing agent, and even implies that their agent, Marty Freed, the one who got them the gig in Marrakesh, is also a communist. Chuck is skeptical of all this, but Jim tells Chuck to think it over and gives him a silver beeper. Again, I don't really have a problem with this scene. Next morning, Lyle gets up early and heads to the camel market. Chuck follows him, and Lyle spots him. They mutually suspect each other as they go for a walk, and as they are walking, American agents follow them, as well as Arab agents dressed as Texans, and KGB agents dressed as Arabs, and Turkish agents in Bermuda shorts. Why are they here? Presumably because they want the map and they think Chuck and Lyle have it, but the acting is so flat that it's difficult to care. Then 3 guys in Hawaiian shirts try to abduct Chuck and Lyle, only to get shot by some other guys. Very confusing chase scene, but it's more entertaining than the lounge singing. I feel like this is the movie they wanted to make, a ridiculous spoof on a spy thriller. Jim then travels to Ishtar to meet the Emir. The Emir denounces Chuck and Lyle, and he demands that Jim find a way to kill Chuck and Lyle. Jim agrees to do this quietly. Chuck and Lyle get a ride to safety. Lyle goes to the camel market, and Chuck furtively spies on him. Yeah, very sneaky. Lyle attempts to find Mohammed, but surprise, surprise, lots of people there are named Mohammed. Of course, Lyle gets the wrong Mohammed, and instead of communicating any special code, he ends up buying an actual blind camel. Meanwhile, Chuck is spying on Lyle from a hotel room when Shira catches Chuck and accuses him of telling the CIA about Mohammed, the special Mohammed. Now, did Shira not realize that there were multiple Mohammeds in this marketplace? Did she not anticipate this confusion? Does she not realize at this point that Chuck and Lyle are both idiots? Chuck gives Shira the cold shoulder, thinking of her as a manipulative revolutionary. She explains that she broke into their hotel later that morning and stole Chuck's suitcase, but she did not find the map in his suitcase. She accuses him of giving the map to Jim Harrison. He accuses her of recruiting Lyle as a communist, back and forth. The scene is opaque and confusing, a lot of muttering and bickering. Chuck seems to know nothing about the map, and he dwells more on how she chose to recruit Lyle as a communist instead of Chuck as a communist.
I carried all your stuff out of Ishtar. Why didn't you recruit me as a communist? Wasn't I good enough?
Really? Jealousy over this chick. People were shooting at them before, and Shira is pointing a gun at him now, but Chuck just wants to compare dicks with Lyle? This scene has no focus. It seems that Shira took all her brother's things the night he was killed, but she never had a chance to look through them. When she stowed her items in Chuck's suitcase, she thought the map was mixed in with the other things, but apparently not. Neither Shira nor Chuck had the map. Omar hid it somewhere else. Shira begs Chuck to tell no one that she does not have the map. Apparently she only escaped execution by telling people that she has the map. This whole religious political climate gets glossed over. The scene does not present it coherently.
With a camel.
Oh, that's a long story. It's one of the things I bought.
You bought a camel?
Well, yeah, well, no, I didn't actually buy them. They sold them to me, but...
Huh? Chuck rejoins Lyle, now in the possession of a blind camel, and they sneak away from some familiar-looking foreign agents. Broad slapstick humor with the camel. While Lyle goes to change his clothes, Jim approaches Chuck, explaining that the silver beeper is a tracking device. Jim says that the men in straw hats are working for the Emir and are trying to kill Chuck and Lyle. Jim sends Chuck and Lyle southeast into the desert, saying that in 2 hours they will have reached the Harridan Oasis. At the Oasis, the CIA will pick up Chuck and Lyle and protect them. Meanwhile, Shira's associates tell her that they saw Chuck talking with Jim Harrison, and they convince her that Chuck probably has told the CIA everything about her, including that she does not have the map. Shira reluctantly agrees that Chuck and Lyle should die. Shira finds Lyle and advises him to drop beads as they go into the deserts, so that Lyle can find his way back into the city at night. As Chuck and Lyle go into the desert, the CIA uses the beeper to track their progress into the desert, but the CIA isn't going to pick them up. They're just going to let Chuck and Lyle die of thirst in the desert. A slow, painful death. Kind of like watching this movie. Why do we have to watch them walk, then crawl, through the desert for minutes on end? If ever a scene really drove home how it feels to wander through the desert, it's this scene. Meanwhile, the revolutionaries are planning to overthrow the emir and take over Ishtar. 2 of the revolutionaries are going to claim to be the 2 messengers of God, as prophesied by the map. Professor Barnes will use his authority as an archaeologist to verify this assertion. Wait, Professor Barnes is still alive? Where has he been all this time?
Oh my God!
What?
We're gonna miss our show!
Oh, no!
Yay! Yay! Chuck and Lyle mutually accuse each other of being a traitor, and they argue over which of them has Shira's interest. Yeah, that's really the relevant issue right before they die of exposure. A sandstorm kicks up. Chuck's shirt blows away and the beeper with it, so the signal for the tracker stays in one place. The CIA assumes that they are dead. Then, Chuck and Lyle run into some gun salesmen from England, and they mistake Chuck for an interpreter. Why does Chuck go along with this? We know he does not understand Arabic. What can he possibly accomplish here? Granted, if he just tells them he is lost, they might shoot him. But he could have come up with a better story than this. He is a writer, after all. Chuck says random things in a made-up language, thus convincing the British that Chuck is indeed the interpreter. This scene is idiotic, but amusingly ridiculous, and for once everyone looks awake. The CIA sends a helicopter to collect the bodies of Chuck and Lyle, which scares away the buyers and sellers, and the Americans in the helicopter see that Chuck and Lyle are still alive. The helicopter turns back for reinforcements? I don't know. Chuck and Lyle pack up the remaining weapons on the camel and continue crawling. Oh, and then we get more singing.
So let me drink some water. All the folks that don't have money, are they poor? Oh, well, sure.
Good rhyme.
But that's not poverty, baby.
But behold, Chuck has pulled Shira's jacket over his head, and Lyle realizes that on the inside of the jacket the map is sewn in. Omar sewed the map into his jacket, which Shira put on and which Shira then traded with Chuck at the airport. The CIA helicopter returns, armed this time. They really didn't bring one weapon with them the last time, and the CIA agent begins shooting at them. How is this loud, obnoxious action scene so boring? Could it be because they are not acting like they are in real danger? Lyle and Chuck grab some of the weapons from the auction and return fire. Jim Harrison sends a second, more heavily armed helicopter to execute them. But then, Shira shows up in a taxi jeep, and she and the taxi driver, one who is wearing a Michael Jackson shirt, I don't even know what to make of that, join Chuck and Lyle and fight off the 2 helicopters. Jim Harrison calls off the mission. So finally, Chuck and Lyle mail the map all the way back to Marty Freed, their agent in New York.
If anything should happen to my clients, the map is up for grabs. Here's the deal. An immediate, live, in-concert album for Rogers and Clark at the Shea Casablanca to be financed and promoted worldwide by you.
No problem.
So, Marty is blackmailing the CIA into allowing the revolutionaries to take over Ishtar so that he can dictate that Chuck and Lyle get to be musicians promoted by the CIA, and Marty can make a profit as their agent. Marty is threatening to sell the map to the KGB if anything should happen to Chuck and Lyle. The CIA does not want this because then the Russians could use the map to make themselves look like messengers of God and take over Ishtar themselves. But how would the map even accomplish this? It's just some cloth or parchment or something. It proves nothing. What is the big deal about this stupid map? I know MacGuffins can work well, as in Raiders of the Lost Ark or the Maltese Falcon or Guardians of the Galaxy, but this map doesn't even look cool. Someone's 5-year-old probably drew this map in 5 minutes. Okay, now that's how Chuck and Lyle get famous? By their agent blackmailing the CIA and using our tax dollars to promote them? Does this movie have any concept of people learning to be good at what they do? This is the most undeserved happy ending I have ever seen. They have the audience and the notoriety and the fancy clothes, but they haven't learned anything about music or songwriting or self-expression or just about anything. This movie has gone full circle. We are right back where we started, except now they're famous for nothing. This ending undermines everything that art is supposed to be. I understand that Chuck and Lyle have worked very hard, but they never learned from their mistakes, and now they're just famous for being famous. This is the Paris Hilton story. The last line of the movie is, "We can sing." But Chuck and Lyle still can't sing. The movie literally ends in a lie. And the first line of the song is telling the truth. If you find this funny, fine, but I find it insulting. Is this supposed to be a dystopia? Do we now have to applaud the 2 worst musicians in the world? I'd rather take my chances with the KGB. Now, there is no objective way to prove that Ishtar is the worst movie ever made, because the only true test of art is time. As George Orwell put it, there is no argument by which one can defend a poem. It justifies itself by surviving, or it is indefensible. But can we justify the fact that so many people hate this movie? Let's look at the main flaws of this movie. Number 1, the acting. Half the scenes have no energy. People just look tired and uninvested. Number 2, the music.
Hello, romance.
Hello, adventure.
They wrote the music and the lyrics.
Again, you can't make a movie with a lot of music if all of the music sucks. The movie Airheads is about a wannabe band called the Lone Rangers, and their music is questionable, but at least that movie doesn't focus on their music. Number 3, character development. This ties in with the acting. I know almost nothing about these people. I don't know what they care about or where they're coming from. Number 4, the 2 leads. Hoffman and Beatty are excellent actors, but they are terrible in this movie, and apparently the director reverse cast the 2 of them, with Beatty playing the geek and Hoffman playing the dude. It sounds like an interesting experiment on paper, but I think this was a huge mistake. Number 5, pacing. Many scenes go on forever and ever without advancing anything. Number 6, bad comedy. Most of the jokes in this movie fall flat.
Say shh. Shh. Now say muck.
Muck.
Now say shh and muck together real fast.
Smuck.
Number 7, nothing to say. There is no message in this movie. The only recurring theme that I see here is perseverance. Chuck and Lyle keep wanting to become famous musicians no matter what. They never understand why they are not succeeding. They're just oblivious. This does not inspire me. Number 8, structure. If the movie had focused on Ishtar from the beginning, it would have been something. But the first 20 minutes of this movie has literally nothing to do with the rest of the story. And then, suddenly, once we get to Ishtar, the movie unloads all this exposition about a political upheaval in a foreign country we've never even heard of. You can't start a movie this way. I think Ishtar is one of the most ambitious bad movies ever made. The plot itself is passable, with the exception of the ending, And the movie boasts good cinematography and costume design, but all of the performances feel half-done, half-hearted, half-awake. I've never seen such a peculiar combination of good production value and lack of conviction. It just keeps running on empty. Personally, I think Ishtar is an intriguing disaster, and I respectfully disagree with my parents. There are worse movies out there, but Ishtar was an abominable waste of money and talent. So, that's my review of Ishtar, written and directed by Elaine May. And I have to say, this project exhausted me. I need a sabbatical, and then I'll probably go back to just book reviews. Do you agree with my assessment? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to subscribe to my channel. This is Philip the Librarian, signing off.